So these, of course, are the scenes from Moscow where Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union before it disintegrated, is being laid to rest. Remember, Mikhail Gorbachev is, of course, the man who's credited to bringing the Cold War to an end peacefully. He's also someone who is said to be very radically different from the earlier Soviet leaders. He also brought in the policy of glasnost and perestroika, because in the aftermath of the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, he had come forth and said that the Soviet Union as it existed, its form of government as was in practice, needed some urgent reforms. And with this, he ushered in a new era of certain openness in terms of how government policies were debated and discussed through his policy of glasnost. This gave more freedom of expression for the press and for the media to operate in the country, which made the media much more bolder in asking questions of the government. He also brought in this policy of perestroika, which of course changed the manner in which the economic system in the country had been run. He said that the things in the Soviet government as it existed prior to the disintegration of the Soviet Union were way too centralized and were completely controlled by the central authority. Now, Mikhail Gorbachev is also a controversial figure. He's someone who's lionized in the West as the man who ended the Cold War peacefully, but within Russia, he's also got a pretty mixed legacy. He's seen as a man who presided over the dismemberment of the former Soviet Union, and the current Russian President, Vladimir Putin, of course, has said that the breakup of the Soviet Union was the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century. So this is where Mikhail Gorbachev is going. Of course, these are the final rites that are being performed. His body is being kept for public viewing, for people to in fact turn up and to pay their respect in Moscow's Hall of the Columns. Now, Gorbachev is someone who has been idolized in the West for allowing Eastern Europe to escape Soviet communist control, but he is, in many parts of Russia, deeply unloved for the chaos that his perestroika reforms had in fact unleashed. He will be buried later in the day, today, after the public ceremony that is presently underway in Moscow's Hall of the Columns. Now, this grand hall that you're looking at is in fact the same place that hosted the funerals of the former Soviet leaders, such as Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin and Leonid Brezhnev. Now, Gorbachev will be given a military guard of honor, but interestingly, his funeral is not going to be a grand state one. Now, Vladimir Putin will also not be attending these final ceremonies before Gorbachev is laid to rest, is buried. Now, Vladimir Putin, apparently due to scheduling issues, is not going to be present today, but he had earlier, in fact, paid his respects to Mikhail Gorbachev in the Russian Orthodox fashion, and he'd made a sign of the cross, and he'd also briefly touched the coffin. And also, what is in fact being spoken about is the marked contrast in the manner in which the funeral of Boris Yeltsin had in fact been conducted back in 2007, which had been a state funeral, a holiday, national holiday, had of course been declared back then. And this is not a state funeral. And Mikhail Gorbachev, whose legacy, of course, in the West is hailed as that of a remarkable statesman, one of the most crucial and one of the most important politicians of the second half of the 20th century. He's passed away at a hospital last Tuesday. And in the West, he's of course hailed as the man who ushered in a new era of openness through his policies of glasnost and perestroika, which gave more freedom of expression for the media and for the press to in fact criticize the government, something which the people under Soviet Union had not been used to. This is what the West, of course, claims. But within the country, he is, of course, someone who's seen as the man who presided over the dismemberment of the former Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin, like we've said, has said in the past that he viewed the dissolution of the Soviet Union as the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century. So Gorbachev, the man who's unloved at home but has been hailed as a hero abroad, will be laid to rest today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.